This is Beyond the Big Screen podcast with your host, Steve Guerra. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Big Screen podcast, where we talk about great movies and stories so great they should be movies. Find show notes, links to subscribe, and leave Apple Podcast reviews by going to our website, beyondthebigscreen.com. And now, let's go beyond the big screen.
Reminds me a bit of that movie American Gangster, where I think it's Russell Crowe's character. He just actually returns like the drug money, like the dirty money, and the cops are like, "What? You know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you not taking this home?" And he is just such an honest guy. He's flabbergasted that this would be an issue, and he ends up getting blackballed by the other police officers because they're like, we can't trust you because we're all doing this and you're not doing this, so you're going to rat us out. You know, it's like, but that was the reality at the time.
There's a similar scene in Training Day when they dig up all the money in the guy's kitchen there, Scott Glenn's kitchen, and Ethan Hawke's character Hoyt doesn't want to take the money, and that Alonzo Harris, Denzel Washington's character, is trying to get him to take. And so it's the same thing. It's about trust and again, culture. Culture is a strong thing. Very, very much dictates how people respond. And it's everywhere. It's like gravity.
I would have to imagine the book on Serpico has to be fantastic. I think the movie is a little dated and it's a little Al Pacino on it. 11 for me. Like everything about it, like the themes and everything, were I really enjoyed watching the movie, but it was just a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it was made very shortly after the events. I mean, it was still the 70s when it was made, and of course they, made it look like the time period that it was taking place in. It's been a long time since I've read the book. The book is always better. There's only a few times I've ever thought the book was not better than the movie. We're actually going to talk about that later on down the road here. I think The Godfather was one that I think the movie's better than the book, but it's pretty rare.
I actually got to read the book for the series that we're doing. I've never actually read the Godfather book. I've watched the movie many times, but never actually gotten around to reading the book.
You should read it, and you will. You'll shake your head and wonder, why is this in here? I can see why they didn't put this in the movie. That'll happen about 4 times.
I read Take the Guns, Leave the Cannoli book. It's like it's a book about the making of The Godfather, and they mentioned that the book has there's more sex scenes and violence and stuff. Is that true, or is that
there's just subplots that really cutting them out made for a much better story?
Yeah, well, I got into because they hired Mario Puzo to write the screenplay, and basically Francis Ford Coppola had to help him do it. He didn't know how to do it, but the studio wanted him to write the screenplay because the novel was such a success, and he ended up taking a pretty big step back as the filming of the movie was going on, because he found himself siding with the studio more than Francis Ford Coppola, and it made him feel dirty because he was an artist himself. So he's like, you know what, I'm better off just getting out of the picture here, right? So that's a bizarre. I don't know. It's I did a couple of shorts on it. I was just researching it. It's like Jack Nicholson basically had the role, and it was up to him whether he wanted to take it or not, and he just didn't want it. I don't even know if that would make a good movie or not, but it definitely would have been different.
I know
they wanted Robert Redford. You know what I mean? They wanted Robert Redford to play him at one point. I'm like, he doesn't even look Italian, not at all. I know Marlon Brando's not Italian, but you do the makeup and everything like that. And I mean, he can pass as Italian, he just doesn't look Italian. Robert Redford's about, I don't know what they were thinking, but they totally did not want Al Pacino at all. The only guy that wanted Al Pacino was Francis Ford Coppola.
Well, he was
The
right.
studio didn't want him. The producer didn't want him. Nobody wanted Al Pacino. It just blows my mind how things just kind of happen by accident. You know, like a lot of it happens in wrestling too. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin's character becoming this big mega superstar. That was kind of an accident. Like when they initially came up with that character, he was supposed to be kind of like a borderline serial killer type character. He was supposed to be a bad guy, and then he has a match with Bret the Hitman Hart where he was the bad guy, and it was an I Quit match, and he ends up bleeding all over the ring, and he's like literally in a pool of his own blood, like not quitting, and then the crowd just turns, and Stone Cold becomes the good guy, and Bret Hart becomes the bad guy, and like the rest is history. You know, they didn't plan it; it was just like an accident, really. And it's like same thing with The Godfather. It's like, you know, if they had hired a different director, and you know, if Al Pacino's not starring in the movie, who knows? Maybe the movie just turns out to be nothing.
You know what? One thing that the book did that I thought that I did enjoy,
next one, I guess,
was how they explored the relationship with the sister, with Connie and her husband, and they didn't really get into that. But I think having known that backstory, it explained the movie a little bit better, like the animosity that they had towards the brother-in-law.
Yeah, that's a good point. It does come off as just Sonny getting a little pissed about one thing and going and beating Carlo up. But the reality is that was a ongoing domestic abuse situation that went on and on and on. And so, yeah, that's a good point, Steve.